Look at this dude.
What's poppin', everybody? Welcome back to another video. Hey man, if you haven't already done so, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, smash the like button, click that bell while you're at it so you can be a part of the Post Doty gang family, best family on YouTube. That's no cap, hands down. Hey man, we are here for Ray William Johnson, the insane downfall of Robert Downey Jr. Mr. Iron Man over here. We're gonna do less talking, more reacting. Let's dive right into this video. Let's go.
So how did Robert Downey Jr. go from broke and homeless into one of the biggest movie stars in the world?
Talk about a come up.
Now, Robert is a kid when this story starts, and he's around 5 years old, living mostly in New York, and his dad is in the movie industry making small independent movies. And instead of getting a babysitter, his dad will just put him in his movies. And one day in 1971, something pretty messed up happens that's gonna change his life forever. His dad gives him a little zaza at 6 years old. And since his father is an addict
Oh my goodness, that is terrible, bruh. That is terrible parenting, no cap. I don't even have to say that. That's common sense.
Himself, mostly Coca-Cola, he always has drugs and alcohol around. And over the years, he starts giving them to Robert regularly. And so Robert has been doing drugs for literally as long as he can remember being alive. And by the
So at that point, your body is definitely dependent on them drugs. You feel me?
80s, he's a teenager going into his early 20s. He's now addicted to Coca-Cola himself. But despite all that, he's grown up to be very talented at acting and performing. And he starts acting in movies that aren't his dad's. And he becomes an SNL cast member for about a year. He's in a bunch of stuff. But one day, in 1992, he plays Charlie Chaplin in the Charlie Chaplin biopic. And suddenly, boom,
Honestly, I only know him for the Iron Man movies. I don't know any of these other shows or anything like that. Obviously, it's not within my time frame of being alive. Like, this is before I was even born. I'm sure a lot of y'all watching this right now, it's the same thing.
His career explodes, and he even gets nominated for an Oscar, and he becomes this big celebrity now, and it looks like nothing can bring him down. Until the mid-90s, when Robert's around 30 years old, he screws it all up. Because alongside the drugs he's already addicted to, he starts using heroin and crack, and his addiction spirals out of control. Then
it's like a snowball effect. I mean, it's the same thing with anything. I mean, it's the same thing with alcohol, same thing with anything else substance abuse wise, you feel me? But like, you get to a point where your tolerance gets so high to where you start looking for stronger and better stuff. And it's just, once again, it's a snowball effect. And then before you know it, you are so cooked, bro. You have no choice but to go to rehab, bro. You can't do it on your own. You feel me?
In 1996, he's driving around Los Angeles super high, and police pull him over. And when they approach his car and open the car door, they see Robert inside, naked and hallucinating. And Robert's freaking out, and he's like, there's rats everywhere.
I ain't gonna cap. I've been in a situation like that. And I've dealt with hallucinations, because for the ones that don't know, I've dealt with, substance abuse issues as well. I'm not gonna go fully into detail about everything, but when you hallucinate, when you're on a lot of stuff like that, bro, it's scary as hell, because it's real. Like, it's real in our eyes, in our head, bro. We see things, hear things that aren't there, but it's so real where it is there. You feel me? And you act on it. Bro, I kid you not, having hallucinations like that. And it's funny how they talked about how he was hallucinating rats. There was a point where I was hallucinating not only just rats, but I think it was squirrels. And it was bad, bro. Once again, I'm not gonna get too far into it, but.
And the officers see him throwing imaginary rats out the window. But for some reason, they don't arrest him. So I guess they just give him a warning and let him drive home naked. I don't know. Then
he was probably a fan.
Same year, police pull him over again. This time, they find all kinds of drugs and a Magnum pistol on him. And so, bam, they arrest him. And a few weeks later, while out on bail, Robert's wandering around his neighborhood, and he walks home and he walks inside his house. But he's so high on drugs that he actually doesn't walk into his house. He's walked into his neighbor's home 17 houses down the street. And his neighbors are there chilling, a mom, a dad, and a couple of kids, but they don't see him at first as he wanders inside and makes his way up their spiral staircase.
When you have hallucinations like that, bro, like it's in I'm talking to the sense of like if you guys never had hallucinations before. But like I said, you literally will see things that is not there. I'm trying to, like, so there's an example. I'm not going to lie. Like, I had a really bad episode. I have been locked up myself as well. But I deal with, like, anxiety and stuff like that. So when I was locked up, they ended up prescribing me this medication that I had to take while I was inside. And I would hallucinate bad off of it. So bad to where I started refusing taking any more medications that they were wanting to give me. But there was this one night where after I took the medication, I was hallucinating that I was kidnapped. Like, it didn't look like a jail that I was locked up in. It looked like I was in someone's house. So I started freaking out. I felt like I was in, like, a basement somewhere. And, like, it was bad, bro. They had to put me into the little psych ward section of the jail because I was spazzing, bro. No cap.
And there, Robert finds a bedroom, and he takes off his pants and strips down to his boxers and t-shirt, and he gets into bed, and he passes out and starts snoring. Then, the mom walks by, and she sees someone sleeping in her child's bed, which
I ain't gonna lie, I would freak the fuck out if somebody random was sleeping in my house like that.
She assumes is her own kid. And so she comes in and she's like, "Sweetie, why are you in bed so early?" And she pulls back the covers and sees that it's a strange, grown-ass man sleeping in her kid's bed. And then, of course, she freaks
Oh, it was in the kid's bed. Oh, man. I thought he found, like, the guest room or some shit, bruh.
out and calls the police.
Where's the kid at, then?
And so, bam, he's arrested again. Here's a picture of him in court. And he's a known movie star at this point, so this news story blows the fuck up, and it makes Robert into a punchline. Like, all the late night shows are making fun of him. I mean, people can't believe he went from Oscar nominee to a train wreck so quickly, and the acting career that he had been working...
Obviously, it's definitely Robert's fault, him being in the situation, but at the same time, we gotta blame how he was raised, bro. The parenting, man, that's where it all starts, the roots. So, like, a lot of the times when you see people, like, criminals and stuff like that getting locked up for stupid-ish or something going on with their mental, it starts with the roots, man. So that's why it's important. When you have kids and how you raise them is very, extremely important, bruh.
So hard to build, suddenly starts falling apart. And for the next few years, he keeps struggling. And at one point, his good friend, actor Sean Penn, is so worried about his friend Robert that he shows up to Robert's house and bam, he kicks the front door down. And he's like, "That's it, you're going to rehab." And he puts Robert
That's a good friend right there.
on a private plane to a rehab center where he has to stay sober for a while. However, a few days later, Robert escapes through a window and he hitchhikes to the airport.
I didn't know any of this took place. What the fuck, man? Robert was on some real, like, crazy-ish, bro.
Where he calls his agent to buy him a plane ticket to fly back. And once he's on the plane, he immediately starts drinking on the flight. Then, in 1999, Robert misses a court-ordered drug test, and so, bam, he's arrested again. Here's his mugshot. And he goes to
He over there smiling because he's still on that
court, and he basically tells the judge that he knows he's risking his life, but he can't seem to stop himself, and he gets sentenced to 3 years in prison. A year later, he gets out, so he gets out a little early. But now he's struggling. Like, he can't get an acting gig because Hollywood movies need insurance, and the insurance companies won't cover him because he's too big of a risk. They think he'll stop showing up to work, and it'll affect the production and cost the studio millions of dollars. And so he can't get work, and he's not making any money. He's in a lot of debt with legal bills. He loses his car, he loses his house, he loses everything.
Damn.
And that is when Robert Downey Jr. becomes nearly bankrupt and homeless.
See, and that's crazy. I guess, like, a lot of people could take something from this. Because as we know, Robert obviously had his comeback. Like, he had his comeback, and I don't know how he's doing now currently, but, you know, he had his comeback and went from there. But what I'm trying to say is, you can come out of anything, bro. Anybody can hit rock bottom. That's not the end of the road. You can always bounce back. You got to just have the will to be able to do so. You feel me?
Mostly crashing on friends' couches. But then, in 2003, something unexpected happens. He actually gets an acting role in a movie called Gothica. But, he has to give up his salary to cover the extra cost of the insurance, but he gets the role. And on that set is when he meets this woman, Susan. Susan is a producer working on the movie. And Robert sees her and he thinks she is fine. And she thinks he is fine. And they start dating and they fall in love and eventually they get married. But it's not long into their relationship before Susan has to put her foot down and tell him, it's me or the drugs. Choose one. And
if you're an addict, we already know what Robert probably answered with. He's going to choose them drugs over a relationship. You feel me?
And Robert, he doesn't want to lose her, so he starts taking his sobriety super seriously.
Interesting. Okay, maybe he didn't choose the drugs over her.
He gets help, he gets into 12-step programs and long-term therapy, and it's really hard for him, but he does it. And now, at 38 years old, for the first time since he was a kid, Robert is finally clean. This is great for him. Here's the thing, though. Robert is sober now, but he was such a mess for such a long time that he still has a hard time getting people to believe in him, including movie studios, because to them, he is still unemployable. However, not everyone has written him completely off. This guy still believes in him. Actor, director, producer, John Favreau. And in 2006, John just happens to be casting for a new movie he's directing called Iron Man. And when John sees Robert audition on camera, he's like, that's our guy. That is Tony Stark.
So at the end of the day, not only did Susan save his life, but this director as well saved his career. You feel me? Like, he was blessed. Because if it wasn't for those two people, we don't know where Robert would be at right now. You feel me? Like...
However, the suits at the studio are like, no way, bro. They don't want to take the risk on Robert Downey Jr., the drug addict, the loose cannon. I mean, the entire future of Marvel Studios is riding on the success of this Iron Man movie. This is a $140 million production. What if he relapses? It could tank the whole MCU that they have planned. And so they tell John, bro, we can't risk the entire future of Marvel Studios on an addict. But John, he's not gonna let it go. He believes in Robert completely. And so he keeps working to convince the studio heads that Robert is their guy. He is Tony Stark.
So they really took a big risk and a big gamble, bro, when it comes to... Because obviously, we all know Robert played Iron Man in the movie. So they took that risk. He got the role. But that is risky, bro. And that's crazy because, like, that's how I feel like a lot of actors, their careers go down the drain, is because they eventually... up doing something stupid, you feel me? And then once that happens, you're a liability and a risk to any type of studios or anything like that. So you start having a hard time getting acting gigs, you feel me? And then we see actors just falling off, disappearing, no longer in movies or TV shows, bro.
Only he can play this role. And to prove that Robert is dedicated to this job, he agrees to take only a tiny paycheck for it, a fraction of what he should make. And then they agree. And so, boom, he gets cast as Tony Stark in Iron Man.
Truth is, I am Iron Man.
And you know the rest. In 2008, the movie premieres, and boom, it blows the hell up, earning $500 million at the box office. And it's the start of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which becomes the highest grossing movie franchise of all time, making the decision to cast Robert Downey Jr. one of the greatest and most lucrative casting decisions in movie history. So how did...
It just started replaying. That's crazy, though. But like I said, take this as an example, y'all. You can bounce back from anything, especially if you got the right people around you. So once again, he had that Susan essentially saved his life. It motivated him to want to go ahead and get clean. He got clean. And then, obviously, this producer-director saved his career because he put a lot of faith he put a lot of faith into Robert. So if it wasn't for those two individuals, man, well, like I said, we don't know where Robert would be at. Man, it wouldn't even be the same when it comes to Iron Man, because if they didn't go with Robert, they would have went with somebody else. You know how crazy that would be, bro? But anyways, y'all, if you guys made it to the end, I do greatly appreciate it. Smash the like button, leave a comment, click that bell while you're at it. Till next time, I'm going to see y'all next time. I'm out.